Hello, good afternoon, everyone. We'll be getting started here in a little bit. We'll give it about a minute, and we'll run through. Thank you for joining. Yes, you are muted. Uh, Hannah, I cannot hear a single thing, and I believe I would need to unblock your mic to make that the case. Not a problem. All right, well, we'll get started here. Once again, thank you guys for joining us today on this Lunch and Learn where we talk about Splunk. Yep, feel free to post any questions in chat as we continue forward here. Now, for those of you joining us and maybe you didn't read the description here, what we're going to cover today is Splunk's search processing language, also known as SPL, and how to get some more uses out of it following best practice. So you can see here, Splunk users will learn a bit of the basics, the fundamentals of search processing language, which they can use to investigate, alert, build dashboards, of course. We have power users. For power users, you guys will learn how to search faster, the short list of what commands you really need to know in order to meet the mail on 80% of Splunk use cases, and also just a few clever tricks in order to improve your searches. In Splunk admins, you'll know a lot of, or you'll learn a lot of expert level methodologies when it comes to navigating SPL and increasing your search speeds, efficiency, while following best practice. And we hope everyone here will learn how to keep their searches lean and mean, saving SVCs if you're on the Splunk Cloud license, and possibly even more importantly, keeping your admins happy by making sure you're not choking the CPU utilization from anyone else on the platform. A little bit about me. Been Splunking for over 5 years now. Been leveraging Splunk to do a lot of mission use cases, which is one of my near and dear favorite things about Splunk. So I've been personally in numerous projects related to using Splunk to solve crimes, for instance, with a DA department, tracking phishing results. So tracking, who's behaving the best or the worst when it comes to educated phishing processes, and also to track automated product test results. So if you have, a DevOps pipeline, you're testing some of your software, you can send that data right into Splunk and have it, be visualized in really interesting ways. This whole aspect is kind of my MO. Splunk to me is a data analytics platform first. It is an IT security tool second. I think if you pigeonhole Splunk at that view of hey, this is a security tool for IT people, you're missing out on the wide ranges of use cases that Splunk can assist you with. A bit more about me. I like to run. I do some bouldering now, and I love board games. And here's a picture of me to prove that I do get out sometime. But yeah, so today we're going to just briefly touch about what it means when I say SPL best practice, because it's best practice is a loaded term when it comes to all things tech. And then we'll go over a lot of these foundations. We'll build up from core fundamentals and get to the peak of the pyramid. And then we're going to share a cheat sheet that you can screen grab and leverage when you're using SPL. Once again, if you have any questions, feel free to post them in chat, and we'll have one of my assistants here answer, or we'll get to them at the end of the webinar. So, Splunk SPL best practice. First off, what is search processing language? SPL for short. Once again, it's the query language for both searching and visualizing data in Splunk. It's similar to SQL or database queries, and those skills are cross-transferable. Meaning, if you come from a database background and you're like, hey, I know that we have Splunk, I want to get to know Splunk a bit better, then SPL should look similar, but still different. You got to learn the new language, but it should hit a lot of that muscle memory. If you don't come from a based background and you know SPL, well, congratulations. That way that SPL works can kind of translate as well. It's a transferable skill. And what's SPL best practice? It's a catch-all for how you should be using or searching in Splunk, and also how you should not be. It's a collection of tips, tricks, inside baseball knowledge, just things that you learn after doing it a couple of years, and you get an admin to tell you that, hey, stop doing that, check the logs, and you're wasting all my CPU. A lot of lessons learned went into making this. And best practice, importantly, means different things for different people. For a Splunk user, my best practice tips, it won't clearly define this, is going to be different than the tricks for Splunk admins, because you're just doing different things when you use Splunk. And of course, best practice is important because by following this best practice, you make searches that are fast and efficient, the two best words that you can use when describing SPL. Splunk searches also just don't go away. If you make a mistake making a Splunk search, if you make it inefficient, if you make it slow, and you create a dashboard or an alert with this search, this issue will haunt you. It's not like something that you've made a mistake once and you put it away and you move on. If you package it into a well-used dashboard, whenever someone hits reload on that dashboard, that search is going to come back and it's going to take up those CPUs. It's going to cost that SVCs, and it's just going to perform poorly. Doubly so for an alert. If you have an alert scheduled for every hour, well, that search is now running 24 times, and it can fail if you're not doing it correctly. A skip search is really bad. It's a silent killer for a lot of use cases in Splunk. And the way to prevent skip searches is to keep your scheduler healthy and to also make sure your searches aren't running long and are efficient. So to summarize up, poorly executing SPL means slow dashboards, high skip searches, and high SVC and CPU utilization, which is money for a lot of people. So let's get into the details here. We're just going to start basically, what are you trying to accomplish? When you see that search box, what are you doing? And what data can I search? You can only create things that you have access to in Splunk. And to know what you can touch, you need to know this search here like the back of your hand. T-stats count, where index equals star or asterisk, by index source type. This is a very convenient tool that every Splunk user, power user, admin should know by heart. This allows you to see all the indexes and all the source types and all the events underneath them that you can search with your current authentication. And it lets you do it quickly. I know that there's an index equals star in there, which I know some admins might raise an eyebrow at, but when you're working with T-stats at this level, as long as you keep your time range, we'll discuss that in a second, manageable, this is actually a very efficient search and gets you all the information you need to start cooking in Splunk. So just, this will be on the cheat sheet at the end, but try to commit this to memory if you don't already know this trick. Then of course, you have what data you can search. What do you want to build? What are you doing with this data? Every visualization pretty much starts as a table. If you're trying to make a timeline, if you're trying to make a pie chart, a bar chart, you need to get that into table form or fields form. And then you need to identify what transformation commands you need to help assist you in this visualization journey by using stats or charts or timelines. These big three are more than not the commands you'll use to build a visualization. Then how do I get here? Start in the search box and export out. I know you can build searches in this, create a scheduled search window. I know you can build a search on a dashboard in the little modal. Just start in the search window though. It'll save you a lot of headache if your search gets longer than 3 lines. So start in the search box, export it out to where its final resting place is, and that will keep you sane. Then foundations of SPL. So we got that kind of beginner tips out of the way. Let's talk about this. So base here is search structure and query. You need to know this in order to interact with your data. And then once you know how to create a search with its query, its processing, its transformation commands, well, those commands are the key part. Learning more and more advanced commands is how you build up this pyramid of knowledge when it comes to Splunk. Third, you get data models. Data models are incredibly powerful. We'll talk about this later, but it is moving up towards the peak, which are lookups or other knowledge objects, abbreviated to LU, so I can fit it all in. When it comes to this pyramid, a Splunk user should really be familiar with the first two stages. Splunk power users should start bleeding into data models and lookups. Splunk admins, you need to know the whole thing. If you want to correctly shepherd your environment, knowing all of this lets you know what Splunk can do and how to get there. We're going to walk up this pyramid, but talk about not only the essence of each foundation, but also the best practice side of the pyramid. So when it comes to search structure and query, we're going to talk about time range and filtering. Basic concepts that everyone should know by heart to improve performance and follow best practice. We'll do some show and tell during this as well. Search commands. You should know bad commands and you should know good commands when it comes to what you should zero in your training on. We know that your time is valuable when you're interacting with Splunk SPL. A lot of you guys are working other day jobs, and Splunk is just the thing you do to achieve the outcome that your boss told you have to achieve in Splunk. So it's really important when I'm recommending these commands, I recommend the cream of the crop so that you know these 4 or 5 commands well. That allows you to do the majority of your job easily and quickly, fully leverage Splunk with the data analytics platform it is. Data model. We're going to talk about why data models are important and then how to use T-stats, the basic T-stat search. We have other webinars that dig into this, but I do want to touch it, give that context for everyone here. Lastly, lookups. We're going to talk about how to leverage a lookup in a command, a very good command for Splunk power users and admins to know, and then how to do speed lookups. And we'll get into what that means later. So first and foremost, search structure and query. So search structure has 3 things. It has the query, the transformation, and the visualization. The visualization is sometimes the cherry on top. It's, I want this to be a time chart, or I want to rename a couple of these fields. The transformations are your stats commands, your charts commands, your eval commands, the important middle part. And then the query is first in line and also the most important. It's what data am I searching? The important thing about these 3 things is that the impact on your environment goes like this. The query is massive. The transformations, sizable. And the visualizations, not important. This is all about the impact of how your search is, or the impact your search has on the environment. So if you're trying to make a best practice search, improving the query goes the distance. Doing some tweaks at the transformation, yeah, you'll see some improvements. And then changing things on the visualization side, don't even start. Spend that effort on improving the query. When I say improving the query, what do I mean by that? Filter your searches down, restrict your time range, avoid wildcards when you're searching indexes and source types, and limit fields as soon as you can. So we're going to jump into a quick demo here on a dashboard I created. There we are. So I'm going to just give this a nice little refresh. And I have 3 searches here. I have an index and source type. I'll pop this out in edit mode so we can look at the SPL. I have an only index defined and a wildcard index. So index here, Cisco, source type, easy. Only index defined, index equals Cisco. And then wildcard index equals CI star, which all of this is roughly searching the same data. And if I dig into this, if you didn't see it when I reload the page, here, and I'll zoom in for next time. This index and source type, when it's defined, we're running a search then that has 4.4 second execution time. That's all the way up here. You can actually see this on any search or dashboard you run by clicking inspect and then looking at the top. So the previous one was 4. This one, 8. Double. This one here is probably going to be around 8 as well for the wildcard. Oh, actually 6. We're going to chalk that up to dashboardism, but it's more than the previous. Key thing here, and this is a lot of stats for our Splunk users and power users. You only really should look at the seconds if you ever go to the information board. And then this is interesting, but this table basically breaks down where that time comes from by what command or subcommand is running. It goes into a lot of explicit backend Splunk details that you don't need to know. The key here is that much like how I was just explaining, this command search, which is the basic query, is taking up 3 seconds, which is the majority of this 6-second period. There's also additional subseconds allocated to the search filter above. Basically, command search raw data, command search KV, all of this is tied up to the search action, which is all to say the query, which is where you select your index and source type using Splunk SPL language of index equals blah, source type equals blah. That is a very important part for keeping your query length and search speed low or search speed high. So do your due diligence and narrow down your search query to the source type you're utilizing, index you're utilizing, and rarely use wildcards if you can. Be explicit. Even if you're, these 3 wildcards all start with when star. No, just type them out. Because even if there's only 3 source types, Splunk doesn't know that. Splunk will search for the infinity other source types in that bucket. That might start with WIN if you type in WIN star. So please limit your source types. That's going to repeat myself a lot when it comes to that. When I say limit fields ASAP, that means if you're only realistically using a couple of fields, action field, event code field, timestamp. If that's the second line in your command, you're now dropping off a bunch of baggage, so Splunk doesn't have to hold that in memory. So that's a very convenient methodology as well. And restrict your time ranges. Come on, you don't need to search all time, rarely, if ever. And if you're tinkering with searches, then last 2 hours is much better than last 24 hours. Everything counts, and the faster execution time means that you can test your queries faster as well. All right, we're going to move up to search commands. So this is just going to be general guidance on where to spend your time when you're investigating and using commands in Splunk. So to outline the big 4 here, stats. You need to know stats forward and backwards, and stats has a couple subcommands, stats count by or stats sum by. Also look into values. Stats values is going to save you a lot of time with coalescing information by correlation codes. Chart command is like a fancy stats. It really is only helpful in a few key instances from my perspective, but when you know that chart can save you, it does reduce a lot of complexity. Stats is like stats x by y. Chart is stats x by y over z. So that adds literally an extra dimension to things. Eval command. A large part of Splunk is timestamps. Let's be real. Underscore time holds the timestamp related to an event. And if you want to present that in the table, you don't want to be messing with cron time or epoch time, which is, how many seconds from 1970. So strip time and string format time commands, pivotal. Everyone should have that Splunk docs list, at least on their Google hotbar, because it is very helpful to translate from epoch time to the date format you like, or from the date format that the data's in to epoch time. And then concat, when you're concating items, you can push strings together to make new fields. Splunk is a bit weird with strings or letters. You use a period, and combine fields using the period button. So if you do string equals alpha dot beta, you've now combined the content of alpha dot beta into this new field. Rex. Rex is its own huge thing, and it can have some best practice concerns as well, because it is applying regular expressions or regex. But it is one of the best tools for going the step further with getting data outside of raw, messy event fields. So if you're trying to get IP addresses and they're not really well coded in your event, and you need it fast and you don't want to do it the proper way, Rex is there for you. However, doing it the proper way is always more beneficial to speed. So when it comes to commands or types you don't need to know, transactions are a little, they're very intense for what they do. And if you use stats values and stats by timestamp commands, you can get a lot of the same things that transaction says to offer with a few shortcuts in execution. I would recommend staying away from transaction unless it's truly your last possible command that you can use. Table star is convenient for when you don't know what fields are here, but it's something that you want to stick away from when you're actually doing a scheduled search or a dashboard search. Table star would list every single field that you have, but that's intense for a lot of reasons. Join is a bit advanced. We have another webinar if you want to dig into that. Join lets you combine two different data sets and leverage both of them in a single search. However, you should try seeing if lookups or stat commands are your ticket through this before join. Join's a bit more intensive. It does a sub search instead of a reference, so it will leverage a lot more resources on your machine and use more SVCs. Okay, let's go to data models here. So, moral of the story when it comes to Splunk is unless your Splunk system's really small, you need data models. And if you don't have data models, you should probably get on with it. Data models are a very impressive feature in Splunk. Excuse me. And they give you a lot of benefits that we'll be walking through. Now, it's easy for me to write here, get on with it. Just to break that down to give you a bit of a insight into how it will work and what your next steps would be if I convince you to get data models. First up, you get the common information data model known as the SIM on Splunk base. Sometimes it's called the SIM model, just to annoy people. This is free, by the way. It's used for enterprise security constantly. So just go on the Splunk base and get it. You leverage technical add-ons that platforms support to do the heavy lifting and normalize the data into SIM. You also might need to adjust your data flow coming into these new SIM fields. And finally, you update fields on ingest time to match the expected SIM values. Excuse me. So it is some work, I'm not going to lie, but it does provide a lot of benefit. With data models, you can change your searches from, index equals network, source type these couple, or index equals one event log, source type login events. This is a whole bunch of work here combining two data sets to achieve actions by username. With data models, you get T-stats count from data model authentication by authentication user, authentication action. This simplification here, all the hard work was done behind the scenes by the data flowing into your system, which really means that your users will be able to write searches better once they know the SIM fields, and you'll be able to do more advanced correlation searches. Excuse me. All of this and more is because this search performs about 10 times as fast in your environment, which means it uses a lot less resources. If we go over here to the T-stats test, I'll actually rerun these here. This one reran before we even saw it. So just to show the difference between this T-stat search and this basic search, this T-stats ran in 0.3 seconds. This basic search ran in 2.7 seconds. So about 9 times as fast. And this is a pretty basic search with a basic time window. So you'll see this expansion get even better and better as you move to a different, more full environment than this demo environment. Now, the best practice side for leveraging data models, only accelerate the time range you need and write T-stats to get that 5 to 15x search speed. This is how you write a T-stats search. And you can leverage data models for it, or just remember the T-stats count where index equals star by index source type. T-stats works wonders for any non-time chart based search, which is the majority of Splunk searches. If you're trying to make a bar graph, T-stats works. For time charts, you might need to use a bit more advanced metrics. Just want to flag that right now. Just to show how these searches look, This renders well? Yeah. So this is the basic search that I showed earlier. Just tstats, count, where, index source file. And I was pitting it against this search right here, which looks very similar because it is doing the same thing, just a different way. Excuse me. All right, last one here. Lookups and speed lookups. So lookups are a file that exists on your Splunk search head. It's pretty much a Excel spreadsheet on your search head level. So it's pretty convenient in that regard. And excuse me. KV stores are lookups. Lookups are not KV stores. Don't think about it too hard. If you don't know what a KV store is, that's fine. It's just some people or admins, use KV stores for other things. Any action you do against a lookup will work against a KV store, but not vice versa. And I'm going to explain how to use a lookup because that will show how it's helpful for your day-to-day searching. So let's just say we have this data here that has fields key and person, Alpha and John. And then we have this other lookup file. This file is on your search head here. And it has Alpha, Indianapolis, and Indiana as new value too. As you see here with this command, I get my data from my index, which is right here. And then I'm looking up and joining these keys together. You can see Alpha here and Alpha here. And I'm outputting new value too. Excuse me. So after doing this lookup command, we're combining this search with this spreadsheet, for lack of a better term, and we're getting this data here. This is really good for employee records, access rights, metadata related to locations, because now you can see that John has been tied to Indianapolis, Indiana, based on this specific key here. Now for a speed improvement, you can use these commands, input lookup and output lookup, to both leverage and create lookups on search time. So a scheduled search can auto-populate a lookup on a time schedule, and then a dashboard can reference this lookup instead of searching indexes. See that in action? We got this one right here. I'll zoom out just a tick. If I refresh this one, there's the blue bar. Refresh this one. So this one here is looking at half a second pretty much versus 5.5 seconds. So a big improvement here. In this search, we'll blow it out in the search window, is just leveraging an input lookup as its content. So we have this search that populates this running at a schedule behind the scenes every 15 minutes or every hour. We're just referencing those results. This is really helpful when the searches that the data isn't or doesn't need to be live. It's just like day-to-day data that you can afford an hour wait, for instance. And then the next one here, you can see that we did speed it up by about 10, if I'm remembering right. You can also use it to improve your dashboards. So you don't even need the dashboard command. If you look right here, this window is using a saved search reference. I'll refresh it. This doesn't use a saved search reference. I'll refresh that. This one should be 2.41. And then when this finishes, it's more. We'll show you the logic for that on the cheat sheet here. So I'm going to take a pause here and let people read through this, but this is a summary of all of the tips and tricks that we've really touched at today. Once again, the key one, what can I search? Tstats count. And then you'll see, oh, if you were wondering how I got these nice little headers here, separating these events or these tables, that's right here as well. And then the dashboard search to the saved search. Oops, excuse me. You can see here that we have a table search there that is leveraging the base search, and then the ID of the base search is referencing a saved search in the background. This is actually a pretty advanced technique to just make your dashboards reference saved search knowledge objects instead of running on ad hoc. So I'll give this a pause here. All right, and we'll be sending this out for you guys after as well. A key thing here is if you need help with all this, Kenny Group, of course, we're here to assist moving big rocks. We got professional services. Feel free to reach out. If you need any long-term assistance, our Atlas platform has great support for Splunk onboarding, training, normalizing data, fractional admin support, and MSP offering. And we also have a software toolkit for managing Splunk, improving scheduled searches, data awareness, and all that. Besides that, further lunch and learns, we touched on a lot of topics. Best practice touches on numerous different types of things that you can do in Splunk. And so this is a really good nexus point for, hey, that data model stuff looked interesting. Tell me more about the common information model. Hey, we have ES, which references the SIM model, and we want to get it jump-started. Do the Splunk Enterprise Security one. Splunk Search Optimization, the tips and trick I showed here were interesting and unique. There's a lot more like by the numbers optimization in that one as well. And then with advanced lookups, we got lookups and join and regular expressions to show you the full depth and breadth of those commands. Then of course, if you're looking for our assistance on just getting your Splunk system from 0 to hero, we have our Splunk Optimization Assist program as well. So we'll be sending out this slide deck to all attendees, and you can click on these links yourself, or you can just Google it. You'll find these quite easily. With that, once again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining here this Thursday afternoon. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and feel free to post any comments and we can jump at that. Thank you.